And of course, this time around, UFC has done plenty to encourage such talk, as the impending return of Georges St. Pierre seems like something less than the slam dunk it should be, at least with a week left until UFC 217 at Madison Square Garden. So we'll talk about that for sure in this week's Fightweets. But first, let's take a look at another theme which emerged over the past few days. Should Mighty Mouse fight the Garbrandt-Dillashaw winner? At Street N8, unless DJ wants it, am I the only one who thinks they should clear out 135 of a few contenders first? Cody has 0 defenses. It's a little weird how all of a sudden, Demetrious Johnson is a man in demand, isn't it? All it took was 5 years as champion, breaking the record for most UFC title defenses, and doing so with a move that's right up there with Matt Hughes taking Frank Trigg for a right and Anthony Pettis' Showtime kick on the short list of coolest moments ever in MMA. But here we are, both of the competitors in the bantamweight title fight at UFC 217, champion Cody Garbrandt and former champ T.J. Dillashaw, have expressed they want a crack at Mighty Mouse next. And I say, why the hell not? This is not a matter of chasing after a perceived money fight of dubious value. Both Garbrandt and Dillashaw have expressed wanting this for the right reasons. They've said they want to challenge themselves against the sport's pound-for-pound kingpin. They both want to become 2 division champions. And they're both willing to go down to his weight class in order to make it happen. Johnson has a somewhat interesting potential next title fight lined up against the winner of the upcoming Henry Cejudo-Sergio Pettis fight. Beyond that, though, flyweight is filled with young talent which isn't quite there. Making DJ versus Garbrandt or Dillashaw would not be a matter of Michael Bisping going off and fighting Dan Henderson when he had a division full of killers awaiting. Bantamweight, granted, is deeper than flyweight, but there's a drop-off in star power after Garbrandt, Dillashaw, and Dominick Cruz. The fight world won't come to an end if the winner of the UFC 219 Cruz vs Jimmy Rivera fight has to wait a bit. Johnson talked quite a bit about money and his treatment over the summer. He got what he wanted in Ray Borg as his last opponent, but I'm guessing his PPV points check for his Ray Borg fight at UFC 216 isn't going to make him set for life. Fan interest for a Dillashaw fight, when it was teased over the summer, was bigger than for any potential Mighty Mouse fight we've seen before. If Garbrandt or Dillashaw want to come down to his realm and are doing it for the right reasons, why wouldn't Johnson take the fight? UFC 217 woes. At Rosmkif, is the UFC's massive promotional push behind UFC 217 a sign of optimism or desperation? I don't know if massive is the word here, so much as belated, but either way, maybe it's a little bit of both. The idea that UFC 217 isn't as big as it should be took up a lot of the airspace this week. Part of this is the simple fact that, there was still a week and a half left to go before the fight, and it's really only the biggest of big events that cross over to the general public that far out. The only 2 fights this year which have reached that level were, of course, the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight, which was the supernova that blew up bigger than anything we've ever experienced in our little world, and the Daniel Cormier-John Jones rematch at UFC 214, which was a matter of the latest chapter of the sport's biggest rivalry capturing casual fans' imaginations. Endeavor, the former WME, has learned some rough lessons over the past year or so about the fight promotion business. But this one, it appears the lesson is that it's not always as simple as fighter A is a draw, fighter B is a draw, therefore matching them up will be a hit. The UFC treated has come off like all they had to do was announce the fight and open the doors to the arena, and the rest would take care of itself. But that doesn't take into account that Bisping's most interesting fights have been as the B-side antagonist to someone who takes his bait. St. Pierre hasn't done so and has come across as disinterested in doing promotional work, which means no matter how much Bisping talks, and he's doing his share, it's not going to pay off like it could. When St. Pierre was welterweight champion, He was so hot that all he really needed to do was simply get ready for his challenger of the month, and the fight would sell itself. But that's not so much anymore. When he's been gone for 4 years, there are tons of new fans who don't know his prime. And then, all the smoke and mirrors you can place can't diminish the fact the premise of GSP getting a middleweight title shot is a bit flimsy in the first place. At the end of the day, I still think UFC 217 ends up a major event, not Floyd Conor big, because nothing is going to touch that, but it should end up in UFC 214's range. My hunch is the fans who haven't bought a PPV since Floyd vs. Conor and DC Jones are month apart decide at the last minute that it's time for another night of fights. But really, it shouldn't have gotten to this point. We should have questioned how big this fight will be in the first place. And from that, the company must endeavor to learn.